365, a security outfit. Burton, Trent Public Affairs. Curaleaf, a current license holder, ATC, and a board member. Eaze, I'd like to welcome Financial Resources Federal Credit Union. Frank Almeida, thanks for joining. Garden State Greenhouse. Puffin Entrepreneurs and Investors. Saks LLP. The Sheet Metal Workers, Local 19. Sprague Energy. Syska Hennessy Group, an engineering firm. The UFCW, Locals 360 and 152. And Weeds Direct. Again, before we get to our guests, once again, I'm Ed DeVoe. I'm president of the CannaBusiness Association. And this week, I really want to extend a heartfelt thanks to the UFCW for hosting a fantastic networking event this week. We had more people attend than originally registered. Got a lot of great information with respect to what the labor peace agreements are and what they mean to you and your business. Want to thank Hugh Giordano. I want to thank the president of the UFCW. It was a tremendous event. And so we look forward to our next event, which will be in May 17th. It will be at the Blackthorn in New Brunswick. So May 17th, mark your calendars. We'd love to see you there. And also for your calendars, the CRC, the New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Commission, will have its meeting on May 24th. Its regularly scheduled public meeting will be on May 24th. We are expecting more good things from our regulatory body. Well, with that, I want to welcome CannabisIT. I want to welcome this fantastic corporate sponsor and its representatives, Mario Trafficante, Phil Alberta, and Joe McNally. I want to welcome you to Lunch and Learn. And I'll turn it over to you to introduce yourselves more fully and what CannabisIT is and what you do, what you bring to the industry.
Great. Thank you so much, Ed. I really appreciate it. And thank you to the CannabisIT Association for organizing today's event. Hello to all the attendees out there. We're excited to be presenting to you today. My name's Mario Trafficante from CannabisIT, and I'm in charge of the Northeast region for the company. And then also with me today, I have Joe McNally, our COO, and Phil Alberta, our CIO. And I'm going to turn it over to Joe, who's going to step us through a quick high-level overview of CannabisIT and who we are. And then we'll quickly open it up for questions. And we want this to be collaborative. We want this to be an open discussion. So please feel free to hit us with any questions. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Mario. And thank you, Ed, and the team. And thank everyone for joining. I'm going to walk through a presentation, and I'll try not to make it as too boring. And then we can have question and answers right after. But I just want to talk through about what CannabisIT is and how we may be very supportive for all of the ventures taking place down in New Jersey. So, sorry, I'll slow down. So really want to talk about three main things. Well, real quick overview about who we are, but the three main buckets that are wrapped around IT in the cannabis space are compliance and security, IT management, and facilities planning. And we'll get into those in a little bit more detail. And just real quick, who we are. CannabisIT is a collection of IT experts, business experts that have come together. We all have backgrounds in more of the IT space, management space, but we recognized about 4 years ago the need for dedicating intellectual property and IT services just to the cannabis industry. So we know the regulatory requirements, the business demands, the ever-changing technology best practices, and our goal is to really use that to help out you and get your businesses up and running as seamless and as efficiently as possible, as well as quickly as possible. Part of that is our mission. We really want to try to develop a cookbook approach, cookie cutter approach to all of these cannabis locations, whether they be grow facilities or dispensaries, and not have to reinvent the wheel every time. So we're using our experience to really help drive all of the future build-outs that we're involved in. One of the keys is really to remain compliant and to prosper. So making sure that we have everything covered up front, and then supporting post-install to keep the locations compliant is one of the critical parts of this. Sorry, Mike, going too fast. So part of our expertise is that we're able to bring in, services to you that you don't have to worry about. End-to-end services for new dispensaries and cultivation facilities, project engagements for overseeing the entire program. And we also have investor advisory components. We have folks associated to our team that can certainly help secure resources from the investment side. Our full portfolio of services, we're going to get into detail. As I mentioned, the three main buckets are compliance and security, IT management, and facilities planning. So those are the solutions areas. And let me walk you through each of these in a little bit more detail. So for compliance and security, this is critical. If you're going through the permit process and you're starting to site a facility, I know some of the folks that are on this call have experience in this space, you have to be compliant, and you have to make sure that everything that's required from a permit is completed. And from a physical security space, that includes all of your surveillance cameras, and that they're doing everything to cover the surveillance areas required by your permit. Your access controls, who can go in and out of various locations, how do you track that, how do you maintain that, how do you keep well managed, as well as intrusion protection, which includes alarms and making sure that no areas can get entered into, so they have to all be secure. And then coupled around that, as well as in the IT management space, is cybersecurity. So we have to make sure that that is all up to speed as well. And that, as you know, is ever changing as well. From the IT management piece, that is, traditional IT. It is your network. It is your managed services. It is email and monitoring and communication within your facility, from wireless access points to making sure that the interconnectivity between your network and speaking to the outside world is tied to your security system and is tied to all of your communication system, computers and networking, the applications that need to run specific to the cannabis business, whether it's seed to sale, whether it's tracking, whether it's point of sale, as well as basic network applications. So all of that has to be tied together from an IT management perspective. And Phil may speak to more of that in more detail as well. But we will put all of that together for you to make sure it's all tied together. Lastly is facilities planning. This is tough. It sometimes goes as an afterthought, but if you're not really tied to the facility build out with your IT component, you're going to delay the whole program. If you're not having your low voltage wiring folks in there at the time that your trade partners need them, whether it be the general contractor who's overseeing a facility or the electrician who's going to be running certain wires, or whatever it is, that timing is critical. Same for telephony, point of sale systems, as well as the physical security. All of it has to be well timed. All of it has to be planned out. And it takes constant communication and project management to do that. And that's really where our experience comes in to oversee that. So we really want you to launch, grow, and flourish with us. We have a great deal of experience in this space. We have installed over 50 different locations, a number of them in New Jersey, both dispensaries, both medical and rec, as well as a half dozen large grow facilities. So and that's been over the last 4 years. So we have learned a lot. We have, a great program to implement to help do this effectively. And from my perspective, that's kind of our overview. Phil, I don't know if you wanted to chime in on anything in detail.
I'll just add quickly so we have time, to have a more interactive discussion. The most important thing I can share is that we found the need in this space that was really lacking. There's a lot of very smart people in this industry, but the technology piece is typically not overlooked, but not understood sometimes. Joe and I have been at cannabis related conventions and people are asking what IT is, for example, and I kind of had a chuckle. The technology piece of this has to be taken care of, has to be addressed, and in a lot of cases needs to be addressed quickly because you want to get your dispensary approved and up and running as fast as possible. So that's something that we really pride ourselves on. I came out of retail originally. I've been in the cannabis space for a few years now, so I've had exposure to lots and lots of things retail related. I've also been involved more heavily in business management, right? So helping people get these things up and running and profitable quickly is really important to us. So we cover a lot of bases, but as Joe mentioned in the presentation, the strength is really in this idea of security and technology. So I'll leave it there.
Mario, did you want to add anything to the presentation?
I think the Phil and Joe, thank you both so much. I think the only thing that I want to add is you are dealing with local resources and local folks that have a vast knowledge in this space. Both Phil and I are based here in New Jersey, so it's not like we're parachuting folks in from other areas. This is a local team. So I think that's the only thing that I wanted to add on top of that.
Thank you so much. And that really was a great overview of CannabisIT, and more importantly, the notion of IT in the cannabis industry. So let me ask this. Let's say I'm an applicant. I'm getting ready to fill out my application. As you know, New Jersey is accepting applications for cultivation, for processing, and for retail facilities. So at what point do I reach out to CannabisIT and say, help me with my application, or just help me to understand? At what point do I call you?
Sure.
That's a great question. And I would say as soon as you have that thought, you want to go down that path, you need to call us. Well, because you really need to understand the scope of the security and the overlay of where security requirements are going to be so you can be compliant. So you want to make sure your submittals and your applications have all the information necessary to get approved. And we can help with that.
That's good to know, because I know the association does get a number of calls about people asking, what do I do? So there are a lot of newcomers to this industry. And it seems like getting into the cannabis industry always seems to be a good idea at the time. So this is very important to know. So when we talk about the planning, and then let's move then from planning. We have over 100 conditional licenses approved by the state. So we have over 100 conditional licenses, people that have been approved by the CRC. Let's say now they're getting ready to call you. They're looking for their sites. They're locking down the towns that they're in. They're locking down their actual physical sites. What is it that you will do with them as they go to a warehouse or to a particular building? What is the value that you bring at that point?
Let me jump in real quick, Joe.
Yeah, go ahead,
and then
Phil. Great.
And this is what Joe does, so I'm not going to take too much of his thunder. But really, it's a great question, because you have to there's a lot to consider around cost, timeline, facilities, capabilities, all these things. In the advisory side, we want to have that conversation with you first, so you know what to look for, right? And then after that, it gets really, and I'll let Joe go into the detail of it, it gets really into the design and location and a lot of other things that will help you understand if it's an optimal location and or if there's potentially hitting costs to certain locations. So Joe can tell you a little bit more of the sequence of events, but that's important to think. We want to be an advisor first and help you figure out the stuff you don't know, because a lot of times you can't ask what you don't know, right? And that's really a lot of the value we bring right up front as just part of getting to build a partnership with our partners, our customers.
Yeah,
and
just
Joe?
to add real quick, Ed, to that point is, so if you go to a warehouse, you have to start thinking about who your partners are going to be, the architectural firm, and you'll start working with them to get an idea of how this is going to be laid out. And where we can help is, especially if it's a grow facility, we've seen many of them get done in phases. So because they're big projects, they take a lot of upfront money. Let's try to get this done in phases so we can get our permit clock ticking and start to produce revenue. So even to do something in phases, you have to understand how is the IT and the security piece going to be developed to support phase one, as well as supporting the last phase of the entire build out. So that's something to understand. And right up front, you got to start thinking both short term, how do we get going real fast, and long term, what's the end game when I'm completely done.
Right. Now, this is a bit of and I know I hate to put you guys on the spot with this particular question, but many of our members, some of our viewers are looking for the first time getting into this space. The question, the cost is, so if I'm planning out my IT, I'm planning out my infrastructure, you're going to be helping or leading with the wiring for security. You're helping with my point of sale system. You're helping with my communication system. In terms of a percentage, maybe, using rule of thumb, total construction cost, 10% is usually engineering. What percentage of my dispensary or cultivation or processing should I maybe consider is going to be IT or IT related?
So let me chime in, because there's two parts of it, Ed. There's the capital cost up front to get your IT infrastructure built out, as well as your security, cameras and platform. Then there's the ongoing monthly cost. So because that has to all be supported and monitored, and it's a lot of it's cloud-based. So there's two parts of the costs equation with this. As a capital expense, it's relatively small compared to an entire construction cost. Your HVAC systems, and if you're building out a grow facility, you have irrigation systems, building management systems, much more costly than what an IT component and security component is. I mean, it's still an expense, but really it's nothing compared to the total cost of a huge project. Dispensaries are a little different because there's not as much construction involved, especially if it's a existing facility that's just going to be, an existing retail outlet that's going to be retooled to become a dispensary. Then there's not as much capital cost up front. It's just really getting the IT piece in. So the total cost of that may be a little more from the IT side. But the grow facilities are a big undertaking, and a very small percentage is the IT. It's really more focused on getting everything necessary to manage the facility from the building and growth perspective.
Yeah, and let me add to that. It does vary tremendously. There are some folks that want either a higher level of security quality. Some folks are trying to, as Joe mentioned, take it in phases and stages. I'll say this, and I don't mean this in a frightening way. It's always more than you expect. because there's a lot of things you don't think of, right? And that's where we come in and try to help you build that budget together, right? So everyone knows they need a camera, but once you look at the compliance regulations, someone has to store that for a certain amount of time, and you have to make it accessible remotely, and all those little things start to ratchet up. But to Joe's point, it isn't a huge number in comparison to the rest of what you're doing, but it is a number, and you probably didn't think about it before you got that application. So that's why Joe said get us in the application phase, because we'll bring that to light. But definitely something that we'll take the mystery out of it for you. And with Joe's experience in particular, and some of the other folks we've worked with, we have a lot of access to other providers. We're more of an advisor and project management kind of organization. So if you don't know which architect to use, we know some architects. If you don't know which security group or cabling or anything else, we bring all that together for you and give you options, so that it gives you a chance to decide which level of quality do you want. And sometimes it's timing. Now with supply chain, maybe you have to pick something different. All those kind of factors are things we talk through with you.
Yeah, and listen, the only thing that I'll add to that really quickly, Ed, is that, although from a cost perspective, it's probably, one of the smaller costs in terms of the build, you cannot open your doors without caring for it. And that's the critical piece to this. And it's not just the security component, it's the core IT, because you will not get an inspector to say, yes, you're good to go, without checking some basic boxes that revolve around IT. And I think that's the critical piece.
Great. In our conversation, timing, right? Phases, timing,
Mm-hmm.
that's come up a few times in your presentation and in our conversation. So what are some of the roadblocks that you've encountered that prevent you from accomplishing your mission in a timely fashion?
Yeah, and I can speak to that, Ed. Having experienced a number of installs, some of the roadblocks are not getting us in upfront early, and bringing us into the IT piece as an afterthought, as we mentioned, and you start to then chase everything, and everything gets delayed. We do not want to be part of any delays. Want to make sure we're upfront with you as much as possible. So communication is another piece. If you haven't established a regular cadence with the trade partners working at a site, whether it be the general contractor overseeing it, the electricians, the HVAC folks, they all have a piece associated to the IT component at a point in time. So if that communication hasn't been properly established in a constant communication, there are things that are going to be missed, and those will be delays. Whether it be getting the IT room built out at a time when everyone's ready for it. Sometimes we've had a couple of delays where notified that the walls of the IT room were ready, and that we could start implementing the IT components. And it's not an overnight thing. It takes a while, because you have to secure the equipment, and there are supply chain issues these days. So it really comes down to getting us in early, and then establishing, which is part of our program, constant communication with all of the relevant partners involved in a project.
So that's an interesting piece that you just mentioned, Joe. Partners and working with others. So as a design team comes into place, you have let's say a general contractor, and you may have certain project management folks. So what is your relationship, or how do you work with that team once it's assembled?
Great question. It is critical for us to establish a weekly call, in more sidebar conversations sometimes, but a weekly call with the general contractor, and on making sure the general contractor knows what our time requirements are. And being on that is so critical, Ed, because we've had instances where it hasn't been that way, and that's not what we want. So we've had right up from the very beginning, we've had, I don't know, maybe a dozen projects, Ed, where we've started down the path of looking at it at the beginning, and the architectural plans don't even have a dedicated IT room. And,
Happens a lot.
Yeah. And it's amazing that little small piece becomes a stop for a minute while they redo the architectural plans as we identify a 6 foot by 8 foot or 8 foot by 10 foot room that has to have all the power requirements to support a network, that has to have all the environmental requirements, temperature controlled and climate control systems. This is you're going to have an expense putting in a network and an IT and security cameras and UPS systems, all of which are required. And there's a cost to that. And you don't want to destroy, ruin that cost simply because you haven't thought through something as simple as an IT room. So those are the types of things that it's very critical that we start to communicate. So establishing that with the owners, the partners, the architectural firm, and the general contractor is really
this has been tremendous information. I know that we're going to have people actually tune into this later. So there are people that are on the call now that have touched base with us, and that will touch base with you. So if you don't mind putting your contact information in the chat, I know that people can contact you via the CannabisIT Association website, but if you want to type in your either group or individual information, that would really be helpful.
Sure.
As we kind of get to the point of wrapping up and go around the horn, I just want to highlight some of the things that you talked about, and that is the criticality of IT and making sure that compliance is huge. Compliance is the name of the game. Cannabis is a regulated industry. You are part of that puzzle. You are part of that operational plan that's really going to make this work for people. Getting you in sooner rather than later is a plus. Making sure that they reach out to CannabisIT to say, what do I need to do? Also, I like the notion that as whether you're a conditional applicant or a conditional license holder, having you during a site tour so that you could look at a site with someone is important as well. So anything that you want to share kind of as a wrap up, and I'll leave it open to all three of you, Joe, Mario, and Phil.
Yeah, that last point, Ed, I think it's great you're bringing that up. Site tours uncover a lot. Simple stuff like, where is your internet service provider going to bring their
Right.
circuit in? You could be doing a site tour and realize that, you end up putting the network halfway across the building from where the circuit's going to come in. So stuff like that are things you'll pick out on a site tour, and really critical to help you reduce cost.
Let me add, this is lunch and learn, right? So I'll tell you what I've learned doing this, and it's really simple. The most successful operators build a plan and think about all the interdependencies, and most of them realize they can't do it alone, and they get experts involved, and that's what we suggest all the time, whether it's us or someone else. I've seen, folks work with security companies that aren't experts in cannabis and then try to get a certification, and they missed a whole bunch of things in the process. So definitely plan, give yourself time to plan, and include the experts, and you have your greatest chance of success.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the earlier the better for getting us involved, for sure. I think that's the overarching theme of the day.
Excellent. And Mario, as you pointed out, you do have people in New Jersey.
We do.
You're a big company. You have people that are
That's right.
in New Jersey that can assist right away if needed.
Yep, we have feet on the street. We've got existing customers in New Jersey, on both sides of the, both the adult use and the recreational. And the the medical. Excuse me. Yeah, no, we're here to help.
That's great. So CannabisIT, I want to thank Joe McNally, Phil Alberta, and Mario Trafficante once again for sharing. And before we wrap up, I do have behind me, if you've noticed, Union County College. That's where I am today. I try to be in different places, so I'm actually doing lunch and learn from Union County College. So I want to give a shout out to the school. I want to thank Dr. McManaman. She's the president of the college. We actually have an affiliation agreement with Union County College, helping them with their cannabis certification programming and curriculum. So a little bit about Union County College. It is New Jersey's oldest county college. They are celebrating 90 years in the higher education space. Also want to congratulate Union County College for being a finalist in the Aspen Awards. The Aspens go around the country taking a look at county and community colleges. There's over 1,200 of them across the country, and Union County College is in fact a finalist for an Aspen Award. So thank you, Union County College, for allowing me to do Lunch and Learn. Once again, I'm Ed DeVoe, president of the New Jersey CannaBusiness Association. And again, I want to thank Mario Trafficante, Phil Alberta, and Joe McNally of CannabisIT. Classic information, great stuff to know as our membership prepares to be license holders. They prepare to put together applications. Your help is critical from the very beginning. So again, thank you all very much. Any parting thoughts? Otherwise, we'll join you really soon.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Ed and everyone.
Appreciate it. Have a wonderful weekend.